Okay, students, the poet has used some figures of speech. A figure of speech is a deviation from a common mode of writing, and it is a word or phrase with a specialized meaning. Figures of speech often provide emphasis, freshness of expression, or clarity. So, the figures of speech the poet basically uses in their poetry just to clarify the meaning and just to beautify the language of the poem. So the poet has used some figures of speech in this poem as well, just to beautify and just to enhance the meaning of the poem. As we have done the explanation of the poem in a very simple word, then we have started the analysis of the poem in which we did the rhyme scheme. So further, the poet has used some figures of speech. So let's start with the figures of speech that the poet has used. The chief figures of speech are simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration, and imagery. Simile is a figure of speech in which like or as is used to make a comparison. For example, her eyes twinkle like stars. She was as busy as a bee. So, what is simile? Simile means when a poet compares one thing with another. When we compare one thing with another and we use some comparative words. And what are the comparative words that we use? Like or as, such as. So if we use some comparative words like or as and we compare one thing with another, this is called simile. As we have example number one, her eyes twinkle like star. So in this example, you can see her eyes twinkle. We can also say like her eyes twinkle, but we have given comparison with star. How many things are there? There are two things, eyes and then stars. So we have compared eyes with stars. And we have used some comparative word. And what is the comparative word that we have used? That is like. This is called simile. And the second example, she was as busy as a bee. We can also say she was busy. But here we have given a comparison that somebody is as busy as a bee. So we have used a comparative words, and what is the comparative words that we have used is as busy as bee. I hope you have understood what is simile. In this poem, the poet or the speaker compares himself to one natural element, that is cloud. If you could remember, in the very first stanza, the poet compares himself with the cloud. As I have told you, the poet is comparing himself with a cloud. And why does the poet compare himself with a cloud? Because the poet says that as he was alone, so similarly cloud is also alone in the sky, and that cloud floats over hills and valleys. As the poet was also moving from one place to another, in the same way the cloud also moves from one place to another. And where does a cloud move? The cloud moves over high vales and hills. And the poet has made the comparison. I wandered lonely as a cloud. So the poet has compared himself with the cloud, and the poet has used comparative word, that is as. And then the poet has also compared the daffodils with the star due to their large number and shine. The speaker or the poet notes how the flowers seem to go on without ending alongside of a bay, as the stars are stretched in never-ending line on the Milky Way. So in the second stanza, we can also see the poet has compared the stars with the daffodils. If you could only remember, the poet has also compared the daffodils with stars. And why did the poet compare the daffodils with the star? Because daffodils were in a great number, in a large number, a host of golden daffodils, and a large number or crowd of daffodils. So the poet has also told us that the stars are also unlimited in number, as the daffodils were also endless. So the poet has made a comparison between daffodils and star just because of number. And then the poet also says that the daffodils shine like star. The daffodils also twinkle or shine like star. As stars shine at night, similarly, the daffodils shine very brightly in the daylight. So the poet has made the comparison due to the large number and shine. And the poet has used the comparative word. And what is the comparative word that the poet has used? Continuous as the star that shines. This is the example of simile, and the poet has used simile in the poem. Second, metaphor. A metaphor is implied simply in which a comparison is made between two things without using comparative words like or as. It means that it is also an implied simile. Comparison is made between two things, but we do not use comparative words. Like in simile, we use comparative words like or as, but in metaphor, we do not use comparative words. We give direct statement. For example, he proved a lion in the fight. We can also say he proved like a lion in the fight. But what we said that he proved a lion in the fight. This is an example of metaphor. And then the second example, the camel is the ship of the desert. We can also say the camel is like the ship of the desert. But we have said, or we have given a direct statement. This is called metaphor, in which we do not use comparative words. We simply give a direct statement. So in this poem, the poet has used metaphor, a host of golden daffodils. The poet did not compare daffodils with the gold. The poet has given direct statement, and the poet says that a host of golden daffodils. So this golden daffodils is a metaphor. The poet has used metaphor in the poem. Personification, it is another aspect of figurative language in which inhuman things or objects are given human attributes. So it means that it is also a figure of speech in which the poet basically gives human attributes to non-living things or inanimate objects. The quality of human beings is given to non-living things. This is the simplest definition of personification. And how has the poet used personification in the poem? The poet has given the human attributes to daffodils. The speaker describes the daffodils as having human characteristics which are not meant to be taken literally but instead imaginatively. The dancing and the moving heads of the daffodil is actually just the effect of the wind, but the poet finds similarity between daffodils' movement and dance. Daffodils are dancing. It is a personification, given human attributes or qualities to inanimate object used by the poet. So in the poem, the poet has given the human attributes to daffodil. And how has the poet given human attributes to daffodil? Because the daffodils were fluttering in the first stanza, last line fluttering and dancing, and in the second stanza they were also dancing and moving their heads. So the movement and dancing, these are the qualities, these are the attributes of human, and the poet has given to daffodils. Fluttering and dancing in the breeze in the first stanza and tossing their heads in sprightly dance, these are the qualities of human given to daffodils. Alliteration, it is a repetition of the same consonant sound. As we know about the consonant sound, other than the vowel sounds are all consonant sounds. Vowel sounds are A, E, I, O, U, and the rest of the alphabets are all consonants. So the poet has also used alliteration of the same consonant sound. If we have the same consonant sound in one line, that is called alliteration. As in the first stanza, high over vales and hills. H is a consonant, and then H here is also consonant. So this is the repetition of consonant sound, high and hills. Imagery, it is used to make readers feel things through five senses. Like imagery, when you start imagining something, imagery, the poet has created imagery. Like when the poet has started telling us how he has visited that site and the beautiful and golden daffodils, the picture is actually made in our mind. How did the daffodils look like? So this picture that the poet has created, this is called imagery. So there are five types of imagery, like visual, auditory, smell, taste, touch. But in this poem, the poet has used visual imagery. We have taste imagery, like things that we can taste. Smell, the things that we can smell. Hearing means auditory imagery, like we can hear things. Touch, that we can touch. And sight means visual imagery, like things that we can see. So in this poem, the poet has used only visual imagery.